Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Product Design podcast. As always, for those of you who don't know or couldn't guess by the title, this is a series of talks where I'll be picking the brains of industry experts, exploring different topics within product and design. I have the pleasure of being joined today by my good friend Piotr Tomaszewski, and today we'll be exploring the topics of mentorship within design at all levels and the current state of the design market in Berlin. Piotr, again, pleasure to have you on here, of course. I know it's been a little while coming this time, but obviously I was a little bit delayed becoming a father recently. But yeah, if you could just give us a little overview of yourself and your career so far, and then we'll jump straight in from there.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. As you mentioned, we know each other for some time. I'm Piotr Tomaszewski, and I'm a design leader based in Berlin, currently leading a team at Contentful. And outside of work, my passions are not that different, to be honest. So I organize design meetups and help other designers, especially up and coming and fresh graduates, to get their first job in design. That's what I think it's a bit of the community work. Besides that, I pretty much fit the stereotype of a Berlin hipster. So I collect vinyl records and I chase the fancy coffees and cheesecakes all over the city. And recently, I also came back to an old hobby of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that's a way to relieve stress. You know, like the design is it's a great job, but it comes with a bit of a stress itself, and this is how I work with it.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, look, obviously the first topic we're going to start off with is around mentorship in all levels of design. I think it's something that's certainly overlooked in the market at the moment. I think everyone sort of seems to think that mentors should only be for juniors or up and coming designers, when realistically all levels of designers, even leaders, managers, there's always potentially levels above that you can have mentors. Even CEOs, directors of businesses, there's people that are always going to be above you that you can learn from. So yeah, I know you're obviously running your own mentorship program at the moment, which is being successful. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that before, and then we'll jump into a little bit more in terms of the topic of mentorship as a whole.
Sure. Well, I mean, the reason why I started even thinking of mentorship was just because I encountered a problem in my career, like a challenge that I didn't know how to deal with. So I reached out to a friend of mine that has a big network and asked for someone who would be willing to mentor me on my path from individual contributor to a manager. Obviously, the support system you have at the company that you're working is a one thing, but it's good to also learn from others within the industry that don't have the same context but may have a similar career trajectory, especially the ones that are a few steps ahead. Don't necessarily need to be super far ahead because they might lose touch of it. So that was the reason why I wanted to be mentored, and through that person who reached out for me, I get few contacts. I started talking with few people, and with one of them I keep talking to this day. Shout out to Veronica. She's a great mentor of mine that I can always count on her advice and support. And by being mentored and by being helped, I realized that some of those things, that are so obvious to me might not be so obvious and trivial to others. But this was just the beginning of kind of like I had a little light bulb, but it wasn't fully lit yet. So the other occasion, someone on LinkedIn was asking openly for like designers to review like a portfolio of someone who just wanted to enter the industry. As I was preparing to become a design manager, I said, well, that's a good skill to have, to be able to evaluate review portfolios. So I volunteered and I helped with that. And the person, the junior designer, reached out and we scheduled a call. Sadly, there were 3 questions he came up with, and I just connected him with 3 other people because I didn't have great answers to it. But I realized that this is helpful anyway, like just helping others. And then I slowly started thinking maybe I should double it. Maybe I should like be a mentor aside of just being a mentee. So basically do it on the 2 sides. What really was the moment where I had like the aha moment, just like, I should really give back to the community and do this, was after like an in-person meetup. It's called Berlin Product Designers Meetup by Damian, a good friend of mine, and I was a speaker there. And right after I get off the stage, without tripping. That was a big success, not to trip off. A few people lined up and they wanted to ask me questions. And I thought that this is going to be about the topic that they presented. But no, it was just purely career advice, because they realized that I'm a few steps ahead in my career than they are in theirs. And they just wanted to ask me a few questions. And I found myself, again, pretty amazed by how easily this advice comes to me, because I take those things for granted, having a few years of experience under my belt. But for them, it was like, I saw the moments when the eyes like really blinked and they like the new neural paths were created, you know, like they really get a new streams of thoughts in their heads. I was like, yep, that's valuable. That was where I felt like I'm going to do this. There are so many options there if you want to mentor others. Like there are platforms like ADP List that I think is pretty well known. Mentor crews, pretty much for every use case of mentoring, whether you want to mentor juniors, like people who are been between jobs, or maybe even startup founders, there is a platform. But I decided to go on my own, kind of try to build a bit of a personal brand, not much of it, but kind of use the platform called Super Peer. It's pretty much like a video call with few options with scheduling, and that's it. Like I started small, like without a website for it, without any big campaign. I just kind of posted on LinkedIn, and few people come in, few of them get jobs. Then I posted again, few other people come in. And at this point, I think I mentored 30 individuals since January. Some of them get their first jobs, which I was really surprised how good it feels, even though I speak with them once and I cannot take the credit for it, but I feel great just that they succeeded. So that's how it's going right now. I try to do it twice a week before work, so on early mornings. So far I've been doing it pro bono, just to help other designers. But I realized that in the situations like right now where I'm booked ahead, I would I sometimes introduce like a small fee for portfolio reviews because these things are time consuming, and just my way to introduce a friction to not get too many people in the queue. But the intention was never to kind of turn it into a side hustle, but rather than to just find a platform for me to share what I learned. Because I'm a chatterbox anyway, so
No, I think it's great. I think obviously giving back to the community is really important. And I think the fact that you've worked with 30 people, and the fact that even one person has got a job, as you said, you're not directly responsible for that, but you'd like to think that some of the advice you've given them would have helped them in interview processes or just generally in securing the position. And I think that a lot more stuff like this should happen. And I think mentorship, you only really see it as if you're in a job at the moment, like who's more senior than me, or if there's like a dedicated mentor. A lot of managers or lead designers or things like that, even senior designers might say I'm responsible for mentoring people, but that the extent of that mentorship is questionable, and you don't know specifically how much they're actually getting mentored by these people. But okay, cool. So in terms of people being able to reach out to other people to be mentored, it's sometimes a bit of an awkward topic, approaching people on LinkedIn or finding people outside of your network, let's say, because generally people advice, you go to people you trust, right? Or you go to people that you have seen on LinkedIn that do it, or you seem to trust. But how do you think people can start to look or seek mentorship more? What are the approaches you would advise for people to do, or designers to do?
Yeah, I mean, I have multiple experiences. Every time it happened differently, and those mentorship relationships also go differently. Sometimes like it's someone you speak regularly, sometimes it's more like an ad hoc one-off, and then a few months of silence. It really depends on the person and their schedule. But I wouldn't dismiss any of the ideas that you might already have. So an easy way is to just go on the platforms that I mentioned. Like they exist for a reason, and they're pretty easy to get in. Another option is like if you're interested by being mentored by someone that you follow on LinkedIn or social media, reach out directly. like I have good success with that, just cold LinkedIn messages. But the key here is to be genuine and precisely ask what you want, which is like not just, hey, you know, as the current LinkedIn meme says, we both breathe oxygen, therefore we should connect, right? Like no,
exactly,
like just mention why this person specifically.
Yeah.
Like it's like trying to get a job, like your cover letter. If you're writing a generic one, better don't write it at all. Like just if
I
you
agree.
have a reason to work for a company, just
Yeah.
put it there. So like I had one situation where I was looking at a recorded meetup talk, and I really like one presentation, and while watching it I could not stop the urge to just message this person on LinkedIn, and I put the link saying, I really loved your presentation. I put the link, so it was like not one of the thousands of presentations, but this particular one. And I asked, like, would you be open to discussing it, either chatting here or like in the video call? And I was surprised how fast that person says, yeah, sure, let's have a call. We didn't have many calls after that, but the initial one was, I think, worked just because my request was like genuine and transparent. I said, like, I would really like to ask about those things. I don't know how much of is there in for you, but we find no hard feelings if you say no to it. But basically, I put myself on the line there. So that's the second method. The third method is to just, you know, ask. It kind of sounds silly, but just ask friends for friends of friends, or like the kind of secondary and tertiary circles of your connections. We work at companies that usually have multiple levels of seniority, and someone might just know that within the company that they work, there is someone who gives great advice, who's this kind of grassroots type of leader that people come for advice. Maybe that's the kind of middleman connection you need with. You know, you ask a friend, they are not your mentor, but they know someone who might be. So an intro, the third way. Yeah, and I mean the fourth one is it requires a bit of courage and the social skills, which is like basically if you really love a meetup presentation or a conference one, this is the greatest moment to approach someone who might be really hard to reach online. Is actually after they've done something like a presentation. It's super, like they might be emotional. It's stressful for everyone. So they're like full with endorphins, like they feel good, you know, dopamine and stuff like that. And then you line up with other people who just wants to thank or take a photo and say, please teach me your way. That's what you do. I don't have particular experience with that, but I think it might work, knowing how I felt when I get out of this stage, and I felt so good, and I really was happy that people approached me.
I think the most difficult thing to get over is the actual initial approach, isn't it? The initial getting the courage up to say, maybe just even accept your own weaknesses in a sense, because I think a lot of people are against it because they get to a point in their career, or they think they're potentially a little bit better than they actually are. And they get to a point in their career, especially more senior people, where they think, you know, I've done this for so many years, there's nothing new that I can possibly learn, so I'm not going to bother reaching out. When, you know, things might not be going right, it's blame culture. It's not my fault. There's no, it can't be my fault. I've been doing this for so many years, etc., etc. But I think the initial just reaching out, or the initial engagement of asking people for help, because as you said, the person you approached was more than happy to have a chat. And I don't know too many people, you know, in my personal situation, you know, if anyone asks me a question or asks for advice, I love giving advice, and I love providing advice. I love helping those particular people. I don't think many people would turn a blind eye to someone who was genuinely reaching out about a genuine problem or a genuine concern that they had, or just a personal interest that they had about something you might have written or something you might have knowledge on. So I just think it's that initial engagement that's the issues a lot of the time. Why do you think it's so important that even senior members of the team, as we just discussed, you know, people get to a stage in their career where they become senior, and that's, you know, it's less likely that they're going to say, you know, I could use some help or some advice. Why do you think it's so important that people buy into having mentors at every level?
Yeah, the thing is that the higher you are in any form of a hierarchy in organization, or just further ahead in your career, the less clear it is what you need to do to get to the next stage. So design is a quite young discipline. So every level behind, like aside, like after senior, is pretty loosely defined. Like some companies have leads, others have staff. some have senior staff, then there's principal. And like if you ask and do some research, every company is kind of differs a bit in terms of like responsibilities. Like especially with the word lead, there's a lot of problems because product design lead and lead product designers are totally different roles. And I don't know whether some companies know the difference themselves. So it's pretty confusing. You don't know what you need to do to level up. In your company, you might be the most senior person. So like, and you might report into someone in product or in engineering or depending on how the organization is structured. So you literally have no other sources of like, I need to do those things to level up my career. So if you're interested in staying in the company and honing your craft and or maybe actually exploring a different path, like a manager path, for example, you've been a senior IC and you're like, I really want to work with people, but my manager is in a different part of the org chart. I don't know what I need to do to maybe create this position for me. It's good to just take advice from someone who has that external perspective, who might have done it in the different company. The other thing is that regardless of whether you want to go manager track or like a lead or staff level, you will be working with you will be working outside of what made you senior designer. Like basically you need to get out of the skill sets that you have already, because like your path from like an associate to midweight to senior, it's pretty merit based. You just get better at the craft. And then from there, usually you either need to be able to influence others and lead large scale projects, which is what you've been doing on a much smaller scale. It requires different skills. Some of the social skills, like presentation skills, sometimes negotiation skills as well. If you want to go to manager track, it's like a totally different job. Like suddenly you don't spend your days in Figma anymore, but you spend with listening to people and trying to connect them with right projects or other people. So it's like, it's good to give yourself benefit of a doubt and say, hey, I have all of these skills, that's great, but what get me here won't necessarily get me to the next level. So let's just listen for and learn from someone who might see it from a different perspective. That's another reason. The last reason I like to bring in is probably my personal preference. I love reading, but at one point I realized how much of written material that exists in design industry is self-promotion, plus the things when they go to like all the stages to become published, is all like the market has already moved on. So like I really love to learn from other people's experiences, especially not that old ones, like mostly recent ones. That's why, like, for me it's just great learning. Like if I want to learn a new skill, I would now first go and look for people who I can learn from, rather than a book that I can read on this, or an article I can read on the subject. But that's as I said, maybe a preference. I think the most important thing is what you said, like not let this feeling of, I know everything already, I'm the most senior designer here, why should I bother? It's like actually embrace like a growth mindset and said, okay, I'm pretty good at what I'm doing, but am I really sure that if I just keep doing what I'm doing right now, I'm gonna move my career forward? And then if the answer is no, look for other people outside of your circle and ask them for advice.
I think it comes down to some, I think sense of being comfortable, complacency in a role. I think a lot of the time people, obviously as a recruiter, I reach out to a lot of people and I hear a lot of the time, I'm happy in my role. That's the common thing. If I reach out to them about an opportunity and the common theme is, opportunity looks great, but I'm happy in my role. Well, if I can engage them a little bit further and get maybe to speak to them on the phone and say, yes, you're happy in your role, but could you be happier? A lot of the time the answer is yes. It's very rare that someone says to me, I'm in the absolute perfect position. There is nothing wrong with my job, and there's nothing else that I could want from anywhere else. But a lot of the time it's I feel like I've hit a bit of a barrier in my personal development, or a bit of a barrier with growth within the company and things like that. And sometimes it can be your own fault. It's a lot about self-awareness. being aware of what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And if you feel like you've got no weaknesses, then you're in trouble.
Yeah,
because everyone does.
There's another aspect to it, which is related to like the merit and the business needs. So basically, usually up to a senior designer, like as I said, it's merit based. So like the companies will promote you with that. It's just like from their perspective, it's like they get more value at a bigger cost. But if you want to become a manager or like a lead, like the business needs to have a need for you to fill with this role. Like if you have two designers, like one of them shouldn't become a manager for the other one. It makes no sense, right?
Exactly.
The team, but if the team is big and one of the people is like has a like hears the calling to work with people and feels like they would do a good job and wants to try it, and the business need is there, that can happen. So sometimes what you need mentorship on is how to help your luck, how to influence stakeholders around you to create that position for you, to see the need that you might already see, but there is like, you know, that they might not see it yet. And this is becoming a meta mentoring. It's like not how to do the job, but how to kind of build environment around you in the current company so you can get the job that you really want, and how to try new things. So this is especially what people within the company might not be able to help you, because it's, even though the context of your company is very specific, like how to create opportunities for you, that requires certain level of maturity and professional experience that you might not have in-house.
Yeah, definitely. I think you might not believe this, Piotr, but once upon a time I actually was a professional athlete. I played professional football for a few years. But I like I like to compare everything I do in recruitment, in any job. You know, the elite level of athletes, whether it's football, whether it's golf, whether, you know, any sport, the amount they train to become better is every day. You know, it's everyday training, every day looking to improve, every day, you know, it's marginal gains. Where can I become slightly, if I can become 0.01% better at this thing, then over time it will start to increase and I'll become a lot better at it gradually. But I feel like, you know, even in my job now, you know, in terms of actual training, looking to improve, it's minimal. You know, it's not the mindset in a lot of jobs out there is that, you know, you get to a certain level and yes, there is training that you can look for and there is ways you can improve yourself and things like that. But, you know, to become the elite level of anything you want to do, you have to train and want to improve yourself every day. And I think it's crazy to expect, you know, as we've said, you know, when you get to a certain level of comfort, of complacency, that you think, you know, this is the peak of what I can do at the moment and there's nothing I can do to influence it, when realistically there's tons of things you can do. And network is a great place to start, because there are, you know, there's the design market's crazy right now. There's so many designers in Berlin, so many designers across the world at the moment, and there's so many people you can reach out to who've had similar circumstances to you, where you know, you might have made your way up from junior to mid-level to senior, you know, and then you want to take that next step into leadership. And that next step into leadership is probably the most difficult one, as you mentioned, because it depends whether you become, you know, a leader of projects or you become an actual leader of people. And those are the two type of pathways you can take, and both are very, very different. So I think the common theme that I get sometimes that people just expect, you know, I've been senior for 2 or 3 years now. I've been senior for 4 years. You know, the next natural progression for me is just to become a lead, and that's it. But to actually be a good leader takes a lot of skill, takes a lot of time and training to learn the trade, essentially.
Yeah, and to be honest, especially in the positions where like the business need plays a role, you cannot just hope to, I'm barely there, I just deserve a chance. You actually need to show you're doing the job for some time. So if you don't even know where to start, that's a great opportunity to look for advice from mentors. And you know, I like what when you said that you feel like, there's nothing for me to grow internally. That's actually why you need mentorship. Sometimes to see the opportunities that exist, but you just scan your environment, you see like there's something I can do. Well, this might be true, but there might be actually that you are like in the point of your career that like your optics is skewed.
Yeah.
You know, like you
Yeah. It's
should be
tunnel
focused.
vision. Yeah.
Yeah, you should be focused. If you just change your perspective, and that's why like a good mentor can help you with, then you suddenly see all the things you can do. So yeah, I think this is a bit of a reality check at certain level as well,
Yeah.
which is like, if you feel like I'm not growing anymore and I'm in the corner and there's nothing I can do, very likely you spend way too long time without someone trying to help you
Yeah.
see where you really are from a perspective.
Yeah.
So like I would treat other people as a reality check, as the same as we do in design, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to spend too much time like perfecting your solution before you test the initial kind of value proposition or a prototype. Like you want to get it out of the door as fast as possible. And the same is like you can treat your career as a product in that sense too. It's like you take chances, you experiment, maybe you try the management track and you realize you don't really want it. Maybe you become like a lead designer and just focus on the projects, while at the same time, I don't know, onboard other people or mentor interns. That's, you know, like all those things are, now I see those also opportunities only because I spend enough time talking with others that they ask me questions like, but what can you do to get you closer to what you want, right? And only now I see that. So as you can see, I'm like the fully converted to like mentorship is game changer, and I think everyone should give it a try.
I agree.
Just, you know, that's just the best thing you can do.
Yeah, I think a good point to make is that, you know, when, let's say for instance I'm working with a client and they say, yeah, you know, we're looking to hire a lead product designer. One of the first questions I ask is, so why aren't you looking, you know, is there no one internally that you can promote into that position? And then, you know, you speak to people about their role and they say, yeah, you know, I've been a senior for a while. There's a lead product design position open, but they haven't considered me for it. You know, I've obviously spoke to my manager about it, but they haven't considered me for it. And it's a lot to do with them not being in, you know, they haven't shown what they need to be to go into those positions, because people hire from outside because they want someone who's got the experience or has been through that. But you know, a lot of the time it costs them so much more to hire externally. And a lot of companies will want to promote internally, but if you haven't shown the ability, the thirst for growth and the thirst for learning about this particular role, and showing the credentials that need to be for this role, that's why they hire externally. You know, the company saves so much more on if they just give someone an internal promotion to that particular role. But unless you're ready, you know, you can't just expect specs. You know, I think the common misconception is that I've been here the longest, I deserve it.
It's interesting because it's related to some other thing that I noticed while mentoring. Just like it's never just one side thing. It's always just the dynamics between like the companies and the people working for those companies and the people on the market. I think it's good to just, you know, take this as your mantra that I cannot just wait and hope that people will notice me for what I'm capable of doing. You need to show examples and you need to show them consistently, because if you get promoted to that next level, that's going to be the minimum of the expectations. From that day on, when you're promoted, like you're expected to just have a like the worst case scenario, a flat line of performance on this level, while before you were at this level. But the other thing about is like I learned about so much. Like, so I mentored people who are fresh out of bootcamp, but also people who are in between jobs, and they sometimes struggle to understand what level they are on right now, because they were like a single designer for a company for years, and they don't know, like, I feel like a junior because I never worked with another designer, but also like sometimes I apply for senior and we are speaking, and so I just don't know, and I try to help them get perspective based on the work that they have and the samples of it. But companies themselves sometimes don't know when is a good time to promote someone. So basically, the more proactive you become, the better. And if you're like, people in your company don't necessarily know what are we looking for on the lead level, get outside advice and like do stuff differently and make sure that you're visible doing it. But yeah, like that's one of the things I've noticed is that it's a system, right? Like, so you have people who want to get in the companies from outside, people who are there already and want to get promoted, and the company. And it's like, it's different dynamics. You're totally right. Like, it's much cheaper to promote someone internally, but sometimes I find it much harder to get something internally than externally, which is kind of counterintuitive, but this is my experience. Like, one other thing that I noticed is that, maybe that's a slight tangent, is like, majority of my mentoring calls are revolving around the hiring processes, especially people fresh out of bootcamp. They are just not ready to this series of acrobatics that some companies ask candidates to go through. And they ask me, like, well, simple questions like, how does the good portfolio look like? But then, how do I prepare for a recruiter screen versus for a hiring manager call versus for a whiteboard challenge? So, like, one of the problems that I noticed that is more of an industry-wide problem through just those individual mentees that come to me for advice, is that at one side, the companies swear that they want top talent, and they put a process in place that's supposed to work for it, and then the candidate either could not get through the process, or the ones who get through it are not on the quality level that the company would like to. So I think no one is really starting with challenging their own hiring processes, and I think it's worth to take a good look there. As an industry, we should kind of always challenge our existing hiring processes. But I mean, if you feel comfortable in interviewing, maybe that's a great opportunity for you to become a mentor. So we focus on asking for mentorship, but also I think it's important to identify the talents you have already. You might be just, I don't know, 2 years in the job, but you do something extremely well. It's a good time to start sharing it. I had few people who I mentored, and then at one point I said, hey, I think you would be a great mentor too. Like, can I send some people to you? And they say, no, I'm still learning. I think I'm too early. I was like, you already have something to offer. It's like, no one have all the answers. You shouldn't wait to mentor until you have all the answers. Like, I don't know that much compared to someone who does it for 5 more years, but I have something to offer already, and I think everyone's like that.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone has a unique perspective. Everyone's learned different things from different people, because the mentor program that you run, the mentor conversations that you have with the mentors that you go to, you'll take different things from those experiences. You might not take everything in, so the stuff that you took in might be different to something else that someone else took in from that same chat, let's say. So everyone has a unique perspective. But I think, going back to the hiring process, and obviously the guys coming out of the boot camps and things, I completely agree. I think even I've had hiring managers literally tell me, I don't want anyone who's fresh out of a boot camp, or I don't want anyone. Some people are saying I don't want people who are like junior mid-level, who've been to like Ironhack and Career Foundry and things like that, because they just think that they're all sort of programmed to design a portfolio the exact same way. They all look the exact same. I think it's fair to it in a certain extent. I think you can definitely tell when people have come from Ironhack or Career Foundry with their portfolios, but I think it's wrong to disregard them completely just based off the fact that they were there.
Of course,
some great designers have come from there. So I think this leads us very naturally into our next topic, which is obviously the hiring market at the moment in Berlin. In all honesty, it's absolutely crazy. The state of the market is just crazy. There's so many people hiring designers at the moment. However, I think the first sort of topic we wanted to cover off was the senior market at the moment is where everything's at. All you have to do is click on LinkedIn, and you can see from the jobs everyone's looking for senior designers, and they are taking full advantage of that in the market at the moment. Rightly so. Rightly so. I think every senior designer I speak to, any recruiter speaks to at the moment, they're speaking to 3, 4, 5 other companies, getting offers from other companies, because so many, they're in such high demand. But I think we've both seen an issue with this, is that obviously the quality senior market is obviously there's only a certain extent that goes to, and a lot of the mid-levels and juniors are getting absolutely no chance of securing these positions, because mid-levels apparently aren't at that required level yet. Obviously, juniors, there's barely anyone hiring junior designers or giving them a chance at the moment. But they're ending up paying senior designers crazy amounts of money at the moment because the demand is so high. So what's your take on the market at the moment from a senior perspective?
I think that it's again a problem of a perspective. So the companies who swear they need a senior, they have a very zoomed in perspective. They think of their needs and they feel like there probably are seniors on the market and we need that and we won't accept anything below that. The reality is like every senior has a lot of choice and oftentimes those offers are pretty similar.
Yeah.
Because even though it's still not a common thing in Berlin to see salary range in the job offer.
Yeah,
but
which
like
is crazy.
people
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
people speak to each other anyway, and
Of course,
you don't need to be like a senior researcher to like go on a few websites and maybe look at the local data survey results. So basically people know. Sometimes it gets to a point whether I want to work on the product or not, but sometimes it's also about companies differentiating themselves from the sea of other messages, and that's still a game changer, I think, if the message is personalized.
Yeah.
But in general, I think this is such a short-sighted strategy to just say, like, we are here, we're one of like our company matters, we need a senior designer, we need to get it. It's just like you need to zoom out and say and see how many open jobs are there, with whom you're really competing. These days you're not competing with your local companies but with the international giants that pay like probably twice as you pay. How can you differentiate from that? The other thing is that, do you really need a specific experience? Let's say you're a fintech company, and then do you really need someone who has like relevant experience in, like, I don't know, banking sector, right? Is this something that you can acquire through the job? The other thing is, like, do you already have designers who are like senior or like around the senior? All of these things, all of those questions you need to ask yourself could lead to an answer. I don't actually need another senior. I can grow someone in the senior by bringing in someone below that level. So it's a win-win situation, which I think a lot of companies still don't see as a solution to their problem. Just like if you compete against the companies that you might not be able to match their salary or the benefits package, or sometimes the product, what you can do is you can give people a chance, which is such a such a worthy thing to say, but it doesn't it doesn't always work like this. But just think of the people you have already. Like, if let's say you have a midweight who kind of hope to be promoted 3 times but it didn't work because you feel like they're not senior enough, and then you hire the senior from the outside, probably there is like a 20k difference in pay. Soon you might be looking for another designer because the one you have will be frustrated and leave. Maybe instead of that, bring in someone who's not that senior, and create the environment for them to exchange knowledge. One will grow into a senior. If you hired a junior, they will grow into midweight in no time, because nothing beats that mentorship one-to-one within the company. I just think that it's a false pretense to believe that everyone can get their own senior because the kind of the pool is infinite. The thing is that you become senior by being junior first, and if you cannot compete with your offer by any criteria, you need to do something different. Invest in the people. That's the reciprocity effect. Like, if someone feels like the company really invests in their growth, sometimes it's a matter of education budget, but sometimes it's a matter of actually, this is my story. So like, I was hired as a junior designer for a company that never had a designer. So I didn't know what I was doing, and the company didn't really know how good design look like, but they have this awesome senior and really tenured product owner who was passionate about user experience as something out of his job that was kind of related. And like, he was just bringing his expertise and his genuine interest and was challenging my ideas, and I learned from him even though he wasn't a designer. So I owe him a lot. Shout out to Tomasz back in Poznań. So this is what I'm saying. Like, I felt like they really invested in me by like making me a protege.
Yeah, protege.
Yeah, protege of someone more senior, like maybe
Yeah.
not directly working in the same field, but basically I felt like I have the support system, right? Like if I ask many juniors in there, you feel like you hit the wall and you don't know how to move forward. Obviously you can check online, but then I have someone say, hey, do you have a minute? I have this problem. And that's how you build the future talents, that you might think that you need the senior today, but in reality, no one, regardless of their seniority level, hits the ground running the first week.
Exactly. I was literally just about to say, I constantly hear the phrase, "Oh, well, we need someone who's going to hit the ground running." But anyone who's coming into a brand new team, brand new product, they're going to have some sort of wearing in period, vesting period, where they're going to have to learn about the product, learn about the team, learn about how it works there, because it's not going to be the exact same as where they've come from before. And it's going to take months. It's not going to be like a quick thing that just happens. It's going to take months for them to do that. Whereas, as we've said, giving a junior or midweight the chance to do that, it might take a tiny bit longer. It might take a few months more longer for them to get up to speed, but you've probably spent 20,000, 30,000 less on their basic salary and benefits package or whatever it might be. But we'll get the same result in a matter of months essentially. But yeah, as we've said, the market's so crazy, and I think we're now getting to the point where I've had real life scenarios of this, where the hiring managers are actually paying seniors more than themselves. So where do you think this has all stemmed from? I know I feel like since the pandemic, and then since it's all started to come out of the main sort of core period where there's obviously lots of lockdowns and things like that. But for me, it was probably towards like a year ago where everything started to go a bit crazy, and then this is where this massive salary increase has happened. So where do you think this has stemmed from?
I don't know, like I think this might be like few things just happening at this similar time. So one thing is that the pandemic was a stress test to the idea that software is eating the world. I mean, a lot of services just move online. So people swear that they need to go to the gym to get fit, and then for 2 years they do home workouts, and apparently it is as good, and they save some money. But because of that, there is like a whole new spectrum of health and fitness apps, and someone needs to design those, right? Someone needs to design those, program those, and ship them to the market. So that's one thing, kind of like the acceleration of digitalization of the world and the services and the products becoming more and more digital. That's one thing. The other thing is that just burnout out of accelerated burnout in your current role. So basically lockdown make everything go on like this dark black and white filter. Everything that felt so normal, like kind of going to the office and commute, like even though there was a moment when people really were using the new normal, and they were like, they were using the terms like when things go back to normal. And they were like nostalgic and rosy about, I spent 2 hours in the commute, and I was all, like among the people all day. So after 2 years of lockdown, maybe some companies didn't do well in terms of like securing, like keeping their culture at the same level that it was in the office, or maybe that just like what would the burnout you would have in the company in 4 years just happened, was accelerated by the fact that your whole life was kind of put on hold a bit because of the pandemic. So that's what the great resignation thing comes after. It's like people just are burned out, that they need a change. Sometimes if like in product design they have options, they will use that options just for the sake of change. We cannot also dismiss that. Sometimes you just need a change, and if there are options, you take them. The other thing that might be this related to the salaries that you mentioned. Typical salary sources that we based our kind of understanding of what market pays changed greatly in the last 2 years. So like there's like the market is crazy also in terms of like how much more you get paid now versus 2 years or 3 years ago. That might be a reason why someone leaves the company, because the company might not be so willing to kind of step up to the market. They leave, and then they still have to get someone externally for more money. But I think that it's just last 2 years were really crazy, and they accelerated certain changes that were already happening. What I am kind of semi-humorously thinking is that the role of a manager, like a people manager, will soon be the guardian of talent, which is like you will do everything you can to secure the talent you have.
Yeah.
Which, when you think about it,
Yeah.
it's pretty worthy pursuit, because as a people manager, you want the people in your team to be fulfilled, because the only way how you get the performance out of them is by them feeling fulfilled. So like someone needs to care for you, someone needs to make sure that you're interested in growth in this area. Great, these are projects that will let you happen.
Yeah.
But when you said that sometimes the senior specialists get paid more than their managers, I start to think like sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it's a different job, and finding a rare specialist that can just do the job exceptionally well, like calls for a high salary. I don't really necessarily think like we should pay only by hierarchies. Like we should. There are so many criteria there, but we could spend another podcast
of
discussing
course,
it. So.
yeah, definitely. No, I think I just want to go back to one of your other points you mentioned there, was that as you said, people managers might become the guardians of talent. And something you mentioned before was that companies trying to reach out to businesses, trying to separate themselves from the crowd. It's highly difficult, and obviously it's a big thing for us as recruiters to try and separate ourselves. And I know with there's new things we can do now. We can reach out via video, we can do tons of different things, but in all honesty, there's some people are literally unreachable. But I think presented in the right way, with the right offer. I just wanted to ask you the question, Piotr. What do you think companies need to do better in order to attract talent? Because I think one major problem is that all of the job descriptions look exactly the same. They rely on inbound leads. They rely on fresh fruit in the office and things like that. Like no one actually cares about that stuff really. That's just expected these days. It's expected to have like a cool office, flexible working hours, remote work and stuff like that. But I saw an article on LinkedIn before, and I can't remember who wrote it, but they were talking about creating culture and trying to send the message across via the job description as well. Instead of putting the generic stuff that everyone expects there to be on the job description, being like brutally honest in the job description. I think they said they were an early stage company. There wasn't too many people. There was still lots to do, but they were brutally honest, really transparent. And they said once they switched to that type of job description as opposed to the generic one, they had so many more people applying because they could see this is a genuine company. They're being really honest about where they're at the moment, and this is something I'm genuinely interested in. And I think that's where I think job descriptions and things need to change. But what's your opinion on those topics?
Yeah, I mean, there are two things that I think really work. One is, and both are more time consuming than copy pasting the same job description that everyone had, but you want the quality candidates, right? So you need to work for it. So first thing is like, I wanted, +1 for the job descriptions that actually read like someone speaking to you directly, like another adult human being. The more clarity you can put in there so that people know what they're signing up themselves to, the better. So for example, like I saw like a job description for a head of design position, and I never found like kind of anything mentioning how much of the work is hands-on versus like strategic versus like people management. And then the first call I had with the recruiter, I was like, actually it's like we suspect like 12 to 18 months of full hands-on work, because that's the state where the company is in, right? And that didn't match my what I wanted to move my career with, and I would love, I would love to read it. Like even though you're, like kind of the job description would read something like, hey, it's a head of design position. We are open to people who maybe are not on this level, because your first year it's gonna be doing a lot of hands-on work and slowly building that leadership muscle. That reads much better. The other thing is that while we try not to be shallow, right? The big brands, they have a power of the brand. And some brands actually don't have that flair to it. They actually, when you read about the brands, like, who would like to work there? Maybe it's a great job. Maybe that's a new R&D thing that they're cooking, but the brand is just not what you associate with great work. So this is where interesting and sometimes funny, sometimes that honest job descriptions comes to play, because you feel, oh, that's this brand that I'd never expect much of, but it feels like they know what they're doing. They looking for a very specific type of a person. But that's just what companies can do actively. Just kind of take a good look at your job description and make sure that you're not just beating the dead horse, while like you're fresh and trying to get like differentiate yourself. The other thing is much harder, which is like the state of design manager job these days, as we all try to hire, is that you source a lot, because like there's not enough sourcing specialists in companies. So you just go on LinkedIn, like kind of sourcing tool, and just add everyone there to pipeline, and then you do a blanket reach out, which is not great, to be honest, because then the conversion rate is very low. So what I think, if you want to do differently, is like assume less and research more. What I mean by that, I get a lot of offers that are like, hey, we're this great company, would you like to join us as the product designer? Like, I put certain words in my profile indicates that I want to put my career towards the people management, towards leadership in general. Like, and there is like no match in how I read this. Like, there's nothing in my gut, nothing in my emotional system responding to it. I just, it's a big meh. Why should I care? And I don't reply. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So if you would research someone's profile, you would know. I sourced candidates that I intuitively knew they would never respond. Guess what? Because the challenges that the company I represented had didn't match their clear personal brand. So there was a designer who spent last 5 years in health tech. The other designer that I sourced was like focused on woman empowerment and like working NGOs. Like, you need to know to whom you're speaking to. You need to do your research. Like, it's worth like giving yourself a benefit of the doubt and trying still. But like someone asked me actually whether I know a designer interested in sustainability projects. And actually, I remember a profile from LinkedIn, and I sent it straight away, just because the candidate was manifesting his interest in sustainability and everything that revolves on like making the planet still a place that we can all live on for some time. So if someone puts their self on the like openly in LinkedIn profile, take advantage of that. And don't just like treat everyone the same and saying, we believe we are great, do you have a time to jump on the call to discuss how great we are? Like, you know, that's not really great strategy.
No, I completely agree. I think it's sometimes it's tough if people don't put too much, if they don't give away too much on the LinkedIn profile. I think it's always worth a shot, of
That's
course,
true.
as you mentioned. But I think a lot of people do put some details on there now, not necessarily what they're looking for. But certainly past experience tells you a lot about what they've done, what their interests are. You know, if they've been in fintech for 10 years, likelihood is they probably quite enjoy fintech. But then again, you know, still I would approach them about a different position, a different industry, because a lot of people I speak to have been in industries for long. They're like, you know, I think it's time for a fresh perspective, fresh change in industry. But I completely agree. I think it's about the type of approach, understanding what they want, what they potentially could want, and tailoring your approach to that is so key. And it's especially in today's market, because they're receiving so many different messages at the moment. In terms of retention, so obviously we talked about trying to engage talent. What do you think companies are going to do better at the moment, when there's so many offers, so many companies wanting them at the moment, to try and retain their top talent?
It's like the similar advice in terms of like trying, instead of assuming, it's try to understand like what works for each individual. So some people are chasing titles. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people are interested in the type of work. Some people are in the different stage of life right now that they were before. You're a young parent, so you know, like your perspective changed drastically.
100%,
So like, let's say someone was just focused on like building this cool product for 2 years, and they are like burning a lot of midnight oil in the startup, and then they have a kid, and they want a stable job at a big company that still scratches that itch of solving design problems, but maybe in a more calm and organized way. So I think as someone who like leads teams and hires people, you need to try to focus on understanding what makes individual person different than yourself and then every other else, like versus like while I'm a big fan of systems thinking, we shouldn't treat human beings as something like things we can categorize and treat systemically, like everyone the same thing. My one-on-ones with the people on my team are different depending on the person, and the same goes with like retaining talents. Like for each person, it's going to be something different. The harder part here, especially for people managers, is that not everyone is super outspoken about those things, what they need. Sometimes they don't know what they need. Sometimes they feel they need something else, what they truly need. So the job is not easy, but what helps you is, instead of trying to fit them in your existing preconceptions and biases and your beliefs, it's like actually just shutting yourself up and asking a lot of questions and trying to really deeply understand what makes them happy and fulfilled. But the last thing I want to say in this topic is like there's no formula to retaining people. We need to also treat each individual as someone that is on a path somewhere, like they're on the journey, right? So like you have the timeline of the company. We are growing, we need more designers, we need to keep the designers we have and add more, but someone is on their own timeline of their career development. So I think a good manager knows that no one in their team is really there forever. Actually, like you're like in your best interest as a people leader is to actually transition people to other teams, maybe coach them out of the company. This is different from like letting someone go. Actually, like seeing, hey, Matt, I think that you will be much happier if you run your own design agency, and I will help you to do it. And I think that's a better long-term fit. That requires a lot of courage as a people manager, because you also represent the company and you're effectively making the company lose a great talent. But I believe, companies come and go, but people remember the managers that really pay attention to them. So try, like, instead of just focusing on like how do I retain people, I would say focus on building the relationships on a deeper level. It doesn't mean become friends with everyone and make beers every Friday, but like try to understand them as humans and do all you can do to make the human behind the role fulfilled. Don't always means like happy on the surface, like fulfilled and healthily challenged. And then deal with what happens. That may not work, and that's okay. That's just the nature of things.
I completely agree. I think people leave managers more so than companies. People leave people more so than companies. It could be team members, it could be managers, it could be people indirectly not necessarily working in their team, but people they're associated with, or someone higher up in the company that has implemented this strange way of working all of a sudden, structural changes, whatever it might be. I think being a manager is so key to understand individual needs and wants, and not giving them targets to hit. I think that's the most common mistake a manager can ever do, is say, right, this is what you've got to hit. Like in recruitment, obviously we have targets to hit and things like that, but what should happen really is, what happens here, it's just really great, is that you're giving the power to control what your targets are. You set your own targets. You set what you think you should be doing, what you should look at to achieve. It's the same thing in design. You should be able to empower them to say, right, what do you want? Where do you want to get to? What's your short-term, mid-term, long-term visions? And as a manager, you then work with them to say, okay, let's set some targets, let's set some goals, let's set some realistic things that we can hit in the next 6, 12 months, 18 months. And once we peak and we hit that, if it comes to the point where there is no future growth here at this company, then maybe it is best to move on and do something else. But I think the worst mistake that managers can make is to, well, obviously micromanage is terrible, but be too strong on the fact that I'm the manager. I should tell you what to do, as opposed to you tell me what you want to do and I help you along that path.
Yeah, I mean, I deeply believe that the job could be, at essence, as being a catalyst, right, or a multiplier. So basically, you hired great people, and you know they have talents. Hopefully, if you know how to hire, you focus on the talents that people have and not the weaknesses that they might have. And you want to kind of like a catalyst turn this talent into performance. And hopefully this performance keeps increasing. but there are so many different variables that makes this very simple definition hard in real life. And that's why I think you need a lot of curiosity and being able to get yourself like attuned to other person, like really see them and really hear what they are telling you and what they're not telling you, but what they
want to
but
tell
they're
you.
manifesting kind of. And closing a big loop of our conversation, like the first step that you figured out what you want to do with your career, maybe become a manager, is trying to mentor others. But like one thing that I learned is that I'm a chatterbox, and I greatly overestimated how little talking you should do as a good manager and how much more listening you should do. So mentorship for me is also a platform that I can actually provide more advice. Like as a manager, you coach, so you then ask questions and you mentor too, but you know, there is a balance. So I think you can use that very simple thing, just reach out to other designers on both directions, the ones that you want to learn from and the one that you feel like you can help with, and try there. And hopefully this all makes the design industry a bit better than it is, you know, one designer at a time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, Piotr, I think we'll leave it there. I think it's a good place to end. But yeah, obviously really appreciate your time. Of course, always a pleasure. For everyone who's watching, if you want to check out the other episodes, please do. I will put the links on the description and in the comments as usual. But yeah, again, Piotr, pleasure. Have a great day.
Thank you, man. That was great.
See you guys soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.